All right, this video's for Learning Target 8 and Learning Target 9. Put a little disclaimer out there on this video. We did a lot of work with the definition of finite, and infinite versus series and sequence. We did a lot of work on that on some problems on the board in class and kind of introduced this on the board. So missing the class, I'll do the best I can with a short synopsis, but you may still have questions. A sequence is what we've been working with. So an example, 2, 4, 8, 16. Specifically, that would be a geometric sequence because it's times 2 times 2 times 2. Now, if I put the ... at the end, then that makes it an infinite sequence. Infinite geometric sequence. That's as specific as we can be with that pattern. Today, Learning Target 8 and Learning Target 9, we're going to be dealing with series. And a series is nothing more than a sum of the terms that are in a sequence. So I can turn that infinite geometric sequence into a series by saying 2 plus 4 plus 8 plus 16. Now that's a series, and it's a geometric series. But since I didn't go ... at the end, since I stopped at 16, that's an example of a finite series. So this is a finite geometric series. And again, a series is just a sum. So the quickest and easiest way to find this sum would just be to add them. 8 plus 2 is 10. 4 plus 16 is 20. So 10 plus 20 is just 30. Okay, so don't forget that you can always do that. But what I want to focus on for the rest of the notes is not always the quickest, easiest way. I want to use the formulas that are provided for us for a finite arithmetic series and a finite geometric series. We're going to use the formulas that are provided because they're very useful in all kinds of places. And I want us to use small, easier examples to kind of get used to the formula and trust that it works. So the formula for the sum of an arithmetic series is given in that highlighted, what I just highlighted, S sub n equals n over 2, parentheses times a sub 1 plus a sub n, close parentheses. The formula for a finite geometric series is given here. All right, so let's look a little bit closer at the two problems that I have written here. Kind of divide the page up here by arithmetic versus geometric. The first one is 3 plus 8 plus 13 plus 18, and we're clearly adding 5 each time, so it makes it arithmetic. And I've went ahead and added all those numbers up for you, and the answer is 126 if you added them up individually. What I'd like to do is show you how the formula can give you the same answer, and in most cases, or many cases, it can give you that answer faster than it could if you just added them up individually. So you'd start with the sum of blank equals blank over 2 times blank plus blank. And we'll start by putting in the things we're most comfortable with, and that probably would be a sub 1. We're comfortable with a sub 1. It is the first term, which would be 3. Now the n, you'll see that the n shows up in the formula 3 different times. The n is referencing the n values above each term. So I'll write those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But for the sum formula, it's asking how many of these terms are you adding up. So since there's 7 terms, our n is 7. So I'll put a 7 in the subscript on the s, which stands for the sum of the first 7 terms, or this series evaluated up to 7 terms. A 7 is also going to go in that fraction. And now I'm going to write this as a sub 7 in the formula because it says put an n in the subscript of a. But let's look at what that is. A sub 7 is a symbol for the 7th term, and we know the 7th term is 33. So I'm going to erase the symbol a sub 7 and replace it with 33. All right, so the formula would say to find this sum, take 7, divide it by 2, 3.5. and multiply that times 3 plus 33 times 36. Pull out the calculator just to prove it. 3.5 times 36. Yeah, 126. So we get the same thing we got if we would have added them up one by one. All right, same thing with a geometric series, a finite geometric series. This is geometric because we're multiplying by 2 each time, right? We should get 381 when we add these. This one's the tricky one, so I really want you to pay close attention when we get to the calculator part. Maybe even pause the video and do it yourself. Make sure that you can type it in the way it's supposed to be. But the formula itself says S sub blank equals A1, so I'll put parentheses to represent A1, minus parentheses A1, parentheses R. I'll put a little box here to put the N in, divided by 1 minus parentheses. And I kind of left myself a parentheses or a box to put all the pieces in. Start again with the easy one. A sub 1 is 3. So 3 here, 3 there, according to the formula. A1 goes there and there. Then we'll go to R, because we can figure that out. 3 times 2 gives us 6, times 2 gives us 12, so the R is 2. And then the last piece, which we just talked about on the previous problem, the N, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, we have 7 terms, so the N is 7. All right, again, you might want to pause the video and see if you get the correct answer, which you know is 381. And then I'm going to show you how I would suggest you type it in the calculator. So pause the video now if you'd like. But here goes the sum. 3 minus 3, parentheses 2, exponent 7. I'm going to show you the wrong way first, because you might be tempted to hit divided by 1 minus 2, and that is not correct. Obviously, that's not 381. There's 2 things wrong with this. One, and I'm going to have to write this on the page behind us, 3 minus 3 times 2 to the 7th divided by 1 minus 2. The first thing that's wrong with it is unless you put parentheses around all of that, then when you're dividing by 1, it's only going to take 3 times 2 to the 7th and divide it by 1. The second thing that's wrong with it is after you hit the division key, after you hit that division key, it's only going to divide by 1 and then subtract 2 later. Well, you didn't want that. You wanted it to subtract. You wanted it to divide by 1 minus 2, the whole thing. So here, let's do it the right way. I would suggest you type 3 minus 3 parentheses 2 exponent 7 and then hit enter. Thus, you've found the number for the top of the fraction. Then hit divided by, and then either do one of 2 things. Do mental math, which is what I really would want you to do. Take the 1 minus 2 and get -1, and then hit divided by -1, and there's your answer. Or you could have said -381 divided by parentheses 1 minus 2. You just have to trap the denominator in parentheses, and you still get 381. And then last but not least, if you just have to type it all in at once, the first thing you'd have to start with is a parentheses. 3 minus 3, parentheses 2, exponent 7, exponent 7. And then you'd have to close that parentheses and hit division, therefore trapping everything in the top of that division, top of the fraction, and open another parentheses, 1 minus 2, close parentheses, enter. I don't recommend that way, but I just want to make sure you know that, order of operations, the calculator is bound by the order of operations, so you got to be careful the way you type it in. All right, and then the last 4 questions. The directions here, in general, you want to avoid using formulas on a quiz or test. Example number 1. 1 plus 3 plus 5 plus 7 plus 9 plus 11. If that's a quiz or test question, just to add them up and you know for sure you feel like you got it right. But for the sake of learning the formulas and being able to use them when there's no other option, I want you to use the formulas as much as possible on the homework and the notes below to learn how they work so that you can use them when you have to. All right? So with that said, number 1, I read the directions, find the sum of each finite arithmetic. So arithmetic tells me I'm using this formula. So I'm going to practice that using the formula. S sub blank equals blank over 2 times blank plus blank. And again, I'll scroll back up. That's an n over 2, first term plus a sub n. All right, for this problem, the first term is 1. The last term is 11. And I kind of skipped a step there. Probably should mention 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the 6th term. So our formula would say, if you're adding up 6 terms, the last term, a sub 6, goes in that position in the formula. And of course, n is 6. So now our formula is set up. The sum of these 6 terms is equal to 6 divided by 2, which you can do in your head, 3. 1 plus 11, you can do in your head, 12. And 3 times 12, you can do that probably in your head, and the answer is 36. So use the formulas again over and over again until you feel good with the formula, and then ultimately quiz or test time, just do it the way you feel like it's going to be the fastest. Now I'm going to go ahead and do number 2 because it's still arithmetic, but it's going to bring up an issue. S sub blank equals blank over 2, blank plus blank. First thing, 17 is our first term, got that. Our last term is 65, but the problem is I don't know what n that is. So I don't know what to put in the rest of the formula. So I got 2 options. One, I can figure out what's the missing terms. What comes after 33? 41. Then add 8 again, 49, and blah, 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 and figure it out that way. Or the other option is I can pull the arithmetic sequence formula out and put the 65 right there on the a sub n spot, and the 17 here in the a sub 1 spot. Don't know the n, and I can figure out d is 8, and I can let algebra figure out what the n is that goes with the term 65. So algebra would say distribute the 8, combine the like terms, 17 and negative 8, so you get 65 equals 9 plus 8n. Subtract the 9, divide by 8, n is 7. So now we know the 65 term is the 7th term. So our sum, we're adding 7 terms, so 7 goes in the spot where n is. So the answer is 7 divided by 2, 3.5, times 17 plus 65, which would be 82. Calculator, 3.5 times 82. Whoops, 3.5 times 82. Hit the 2. There we go. Oh, I did the first time. 287. So the answer, 287. All right, and last 2. And I know I'm going fast, so if you need help when you watch the video, get home, pause it, rewind it, but then come in for tutoring if you need a little better explanation. All right, the sum. All right, now we're talking about geometric series this time, finite geometric. We're going to be using this formula. So S sub n equals blank, big fraction, blank minus blank times blank to the blank power over 1 minus blank. You may have to scroll back and forth or write this formula down, but A1, R, and N, that's all we need. A1, R, and N. A1 is 2, so they go there. The thing you're multiplying by is times 3, so R is 3, and they go there. And the N we can count on our fingers and toes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The N is 6. So 6 goes there and there. And then beware of the calculator when you type that in. 2 minus 2, parentheses 3, exponent 6, enter. Divided by mental math, 1 minus 3 is negative 2. So divided by negative 2, 728. All right, last one. Number 4 brings up a similar issue that we had when we did number 2, because we're not going to know what the n is right here. That goes with 2560. So, but we'll start anyway. S sub blank equals big fraction, blank minus blank times blank to the power of something over 1 minus blank. The A15 goes here and here. The R, which is times 2, the R is 2. and it goes here and here. The last thing we need is the n. Option 1, you can keep the pattern times 2 going and find out the missing terms that are in this dot, dot, dot. It'd be 40, then 80, then 160, then blah, blah, blah. You can keep that going and count it up on your fingers and toes. Or, like last time, you can pull the sequence formula, this time the geometric sequence formula, and try to figure out what 2560, what 2560 is in the sequence. Is it the 10th term, 12th term, 5th term? What is it? Well, we start with 2560 here. The first term, 5 for A1. We know our R, it's 2, exponent n minus 1. You can't multiply 5 times 2. You're violating the order of operations. So to solve for n, we divide by 5. Calculator would say that's 512 equals 2 to the n minus 1. And then we're guessing. 512. 2 to the what power is going to give you 512? And I don't know. Well, we won't know. This one I've worked enough, I know, but I'll try 2 to the 8th. No, too small. So try 2 to the 9th. Yep, 512. 2 to the 9th gives you 512. So the number 9 goes in that exponent. This is where you got to be careful. If n minus 1 was in the exponent and it became 9, the n had to be 10. It had to be 10 minus 1 to make a 9, so your n is 10. And that means 2560 is the 10th term. So 10 goes in the subscript, 10 goes in the exponent, and then calculator work. 5 minus 5, parentheses 2, exponent 10. Enter. Divided by mental math, 1 minus 2, divided by negative 1, so 5,115. And I know that was really fast, but if you need help, come see me. But that's a good little overview of learning target 8 and 9, and especially using the formulas and getting used to those formulas.